I said, so what is going to get me close to the front line? He said, combat medic. I said, boom, done. So my unit cased its colors. Everybody jumped ship.
It might seem so insignificant while you're doing it day to day, but it's part of such a bigger picture, such a bigger mission.
The World Series of trade shows, of toy trade shows in the U.S. Some of the times I was happiest in my life, hanging out as a kid playing D&D with my friends. There's no political agenda. I am Anthony Ciotti. I am the owner of a small e-commerce business called Tactics Toys. I live in and operate the business out of my home in southern New Jersey. Born and raised in Philadelphia. Spent 32 years in the Army Reserve, and have had the benefit of 2 parallel careers, one military, one civilian. So I got the best of all worlds. And eventually settled in South Jersey. So
nice.
I joined in. Do you want me to go through like a Reader's Digest version of my military?
Yeah, well, let's first talk about growing up in Pennsylvania. How
Okay.
long did you live in PA?
I lived in Philadelphia in particular until I went away to college when I was 18.
Oh, wow, okay. And then, so where did you go to college?
Seton Hall University in South Orange, New Jersey.
Yeah, okay, so that's what led you to going to Jersey.
Yes, yeah. I followed I think I went to, I started mid-semester. My parents wanted me to go away to college.
Yeah.
And so I ended up had a summer fling, followed a girl to Seton Hall, and we went our separate ways as soon as school started.
Nice, yeah. That's funny. So did you finish college while you were out there?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I stayed in. I was, I think I had 2 sophomore years, but, it took me 5 years to graduate. Mm-hmm. But yeah. I did.
Yeah, what did you get your degree in?
Psychology.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Had I known better, I would have done something different. It's...
Really?
Well, one of the things that maybe I didn't use my career counselor enough, but... I didn't know that a bachelor's degree in psychology is really, with the degree and 4 quarters, I can make a call at a payphone. That's really about it.
Yeah. That's
unless you had aspirations for grad school, and I tried, I took my GREs and came in middle of the road.
Yeah. That's what I always tell folks, and they hey, can you talk to my kids? They're thinking about college, and a lot of them want to get psych degrees. I'm like, it's a gateway degree for another 10 more years of school. Yeah.
I know. And I did have a secondary major in Russian language and history.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we had to take a language at Seton Hall. So I took something, I thought I was being clever, just take something where you got to learn a whole new alphabet.
Yeah.
So we started with A, B, V, just going through the Russian alphabet, started putting words together, and I got A's in basic Russian, so I took intermediate Russian, and then I qualified for advanced Russian, which was advanced Russian. You had to get approval because it's one-on-one with a teacher, which the challenge was she always knew when I skipped class.
Well, yeah.
Because she would call my dorm room yelling at me in Russian, and I like, you're going too quick, you're going too fast, slow down. All right, I'm sorry. And of course I got to do all this in Russian when I'm, hungover.
Yeah, it's funny because it's so interesting that you said it's so weird. So I recently, in the last couple of weeks, have been going down this rabbit hole of just how beautiful certain parts of Russia can be. It's not always snow. I started off with some research of Siberia and kind of traversed into. I follow this hiking channel, and this guy went on a really long, not cross country, but a very long hike on eastern side of Russia, so it's not as cold, or it has seasons, I should say. And I didn't realize how beautiful the landscape is because you just think Stalin and snow, you don't really realize that this is a huge piece of Asia.
Yeah, I think it spans 10 time zones or 8 time zones.
Yeah, and another thing that got me really interested, especially with this whole the current administration trying to buy Iceland, is that Russia is across the river from Iceland. You don't.
Oh yeah,
realize
absolutely.
It's right there, and same thing with Alaska. Like, you see it on a globe, but if you actually like go down a street view, and if you actually look at how close Russia is to Alaska, it's like, wow. And it makes sense. We bought it from them, so you know. But anyway, sorry.
That's okay.
We're doing a history lesson in Russia for everybody who's listening. So you went to college. When did you join the reserves?
91. It was May, and I didn't have a job lined up for the summer. And I'm like, maybe I'll join the military.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sure I don't need to worry about an interview process, and because I waited so long, procrastination in college was a strong point of mine.
Yeah.
So I went to the recruiting office. At the time, it was in Montclair, New Jersey, and all 4 recruiters had a little section in there. It's when they were all consolidated. And the guy from the Army recruiting office was the only one at his desk. So I went right to him. We spoke. Took my finals. And 5 days later, I went home, got picked up, got dropped off at MEPS, and was on my way to boot camp at Fort McClellan, Alabama.
Oh wow! What was your MOS when you joined the reserves?
I wanted nothing more than to be an infantryman, and I didn't get it.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't know anything about how what you can and cannot do with a recruiter.
Okay.
And I took my ASVABs, and I qualified for everything because I got over 120 in every category. And the only thing it was put to me almost like this: we're not hiring infantrymen right now.
Interesting.
Well, you have 3 positions you are qualified for: accountant, medic, and cook. I said, so what is going to get me close to the front line? He said, combat medic. I said, boom, done. Sign me up. So it was 91 Bravo back in 91, and eventually became 91 Whiskey, then 68 Whiskey.
Okay, so you're a medic. Did you?
Yes.
So obviously that was reserves. How long was the pipeline through basic and then your MOS school?
All right, split option. So I did basic training for 9 weeks, came home, went back to college, 2 semesters, and I had to skip a semester because my training pipeline for AIT started in August and went 12 weeks. So it carried me up into November-ish.
Gotcha. Were you a combat medic or working in the medical field the entire time, your entire reservist career?
Yes, I was a combat medic the entire time. I started off as a medic with an mechanized infantry unit when the Army Reserve still had combat arms. Mm-hmm. And then the rift came in 94, and the combat arms all went to the National Guard, and combat support went to the reserves. And I was still a dumb private at the time. I didn't know anything. I had been demoted more than once already. And my unit cased its colors. Everybody jumped ship. It was like it was like the rats running off a sinking ship. And all of a sudden the phone calls say, hey, next week is Battle Assembly Weekend or it's drill weekend. Are you going to need a ride from your home to the Reserve Center? Do you have all the gear you need? Here's what we're doing, because there was no email. Mm-hmm. So I would get a phone call. The phone call stopped. And I didn't think anything of it. And I just, with absence of leadership, I didn't know that I can take charge and try and figure it out for myself. So I got dumped in the IRR for 3 years, and I thought, okay, I'll just write out my contract here and call it a day. And then my buddy Chris joined the Army, asked me what I thought. I said it was a great time when I was in it. I had fun and all that. And I went to go see him graduate basic training at Fort Knox. By that time, I had a mohawk, I had my nose pierced, and all that. And I met his drill sergeant, and I signed him out saying I was his brother. And the next day, the drill sergeant calls him into his office, says, that knucklehead who came in to pick you up, he goes, is he military? He goes, he did his time. How did you know? He goes, I don't think he realized it. He was talking to me at parade rest the entire time. Oh. It was just an instinctual thing. You see the brown, you go to parade rest.
Yeah. In your mohawk.
So,
yeah.
but watching the formations go and hearing the cadence called, and I was like, wow. A day after I got back from Fort Knox, watching them graduate, I was on the phone with a recruiting office and went into the reserves to be with an artillery unit. Or, excuse me, I went into the National Guard, Jersey Guard, to be in an artillery unit as a battery medic. Mm-hmm. And then my buddy, years later, calls me down to his house and tells me how I've messed up my military career. Because here he is, E5, bucking on early promotion to E6 already.
Oh, wow.
And he said, but it's not too late to fix it. Here's what I want you to do. And he gives me a phone number, says call them, get an interview, and if they offer you a position, take it. Don't ask questions, just trust me. He's like, all right, 3 bags full, I got it. So I called a place called the 404 Civil Affairs Battalion at Fort Dix. Interviewed in early 2000, August 2000, I was discharged from the Guard, enlisted in the reserves, and January 2001, I was on a plane going to Kosovo on deployment number 1.
Oh, wow, yeah. Kosovo, too. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. It was great. It was a peacekeeping mission. I had a blast.
Yeah. I'm talking to a buddy of mine who's actually out in Albania, and they do a lot of stuff with the units that are out in Kosovo.
But I fell in love with the civil affairs mission, and that's when I started to figure out what it takes to be a soldier, or how to be a soldier. Because civil affairs has its share of people who do dumb things, much like every other Army unit.
Yeah.
But the mission is, when you do something that years later redraws a map of Eastern Europe, and it's not directly related to anything I did, but I was a part of that mission. All of a sudden now went from a semi-autonomous province of Serbia to its own little country now. I was like, wow, I had a role in that.
Yeah. I used to try to tell this to my folks when I was still in, is that it might seem so insignificant while you're doing the day-to-day, but it's part of such a bigger picture, such a bigger mission, and I think it takes a really long time. Sometimes people wait their entire careers before they get like that piece of like, oh wow, I was a part of this. Or like, I thought I was just sitting in the Gulf on a boat, and next thing I know, we're launching Tomahawks or whatever. Yeah. And you realize kind of like the piece that you're playing and the impact that you have. But that's pretty awesome. So
yeah, and it helped me structure everything I did in the civilian world. Like after college, I went from like right out of college working 3 part-time jobs at the mall to sales, selling accounting and financial services, and selling copy machines and all that. And it was just awful.
Yeah.
And once I finished my first deployment, I realized what I wanted to do, and which probably should have been go active duty and call it a day. But every civilian job I started getting, it was structuring around making me a better soldier and medic and civil affairs guy. So I spent 15 years on a volunteer rescue squad. I worked in the biotech sector, worked in a laboratory, so I got I acquired a lot of knowledge on pathogens and infectious disease and all that, and I was taking courses in environmental sciences, and then I eventually ended up working for the Army as a civilian years down the line, as a medical administrator.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's one of my. Was going to be my next question. Was what did you do with all of that medical training from the Army?
I stare at a computer now all day, but I monitor the medical readiness of 32,000 soldiers spread over 13 states. I write profiles and that kind of thing, and have the doc sign them. I review medical records, lines of duty, that kind of thing. And lately it's been helping soldiers through their VA process.
I mean, that's pretty incredible. When you got out initially, I know I have a friend who is in the Army Reserve as well. She's attached to, what does she do? She's aviation side, but she is also a medic. And the first thing she did when she got out, I mean, obviously this is a little bit after you had joined, but she went and got her NREMT and became licensed. Did you do anything similar when you got out?
As a medic, you're required to have your NREMT.
Oh, okay.
It got written into the curriculum, so you got it as you were at AIT, and then you have to sustain it your entire time. So I had both NR and state because New Jersey doesn't accept the National Registry.
Yeah.
But you can challenge the test and just get your state, because to run volunteer rescue and to do hospital work, because I've worked per diem at a hospital and as an ER tech, you have to have the state certification.
So you're trained up to the EMT level and not the paramedic level?
Correct.
Oh, interesting. I just went through that process.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I took the EMT course in November. I waited to take the NREMT because I knew they were coming out with a new version.
Okay.
They have a new version now that's all about, scene size primary, secondary assessment. So I waited for that because I didn't like the old test. And there was a couple people in my class that were prior service that did not maintain their NREMT. And I knew my friend had hers. I didn't realize it was part of the curriculum, but that makes sense. So that's pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about your business, because I know that you have this really awesome business. I'll let you introduce it. So how did you get into this toy industry, collectible industry, board games, things like that?
All right. So we're talking after my third deployment. I came back, and I got married, and we combined households, and we moved into my small, and we sold one house, bought another, and realized we have too much stuff.
Yeah.
And so I started selling, like a lot of resellers I met started selling things on eBay. And I just put stuff up, and you hear that cash register sound when someone puts a bid if you're running an auction or if somebody buys it. And I was like, ooh, this is fun. So I just started putting more stuff on. Hey, do we need this? No, get rid of it. All right, put it up. Go. Next thing you know, I look into the PayPal account, and there's like $4,000 or $5,000 in there. I'm like, ooh, wow, that's weird. Yeah. So I told my wife, and she's like, transfer it to the bank. Boom, gone, done, and disappeared. I'm like, where'd it go? So then I started, now mind you, I didn't have a business account, no LLC or anything. So then I started going to the store and buying stuff on the clearance rack and bringing it back, taking the labels off, and selling it as new, because it was new. I didn't know there was a word for it. It's called retail arbitrage, but apparently it's a thing. Yeah. And then I started going good, where I had a few hundred listings up, and I get up, I pack, ship, go to work, come back, pack at night, get ready, the same thing over and over. And then I deployed again. So that was, let's see, Kosovo, Iraq, Africa, Afghanistan. Okay, I was going back to Africa again on deployment number 5. I had to shut everything down. And so I took my personal computer and just occasionally logged into my accounts just so they don't go stale and lock me out or just go defunct for inactivity. And I was deployed as a first sergeant. And the biggest job you do as a first sergeant when you're in Djibouti is make sure your junior soldiers don't get dumb or do anything stupid, because you're allowed to drink there, because it's considered a combat zone, but there's nobody throwing grenades over the wall at you.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to drink beer and wear civilian clothes. And unfortunately, those things don't mix well a lot when you're dealing with soldiers of multiple branches. And male and female soldiers together. Things get a little, some formalities are forgotten.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, I'm getting older. I'm already past 20 years at this time, almost at the top of the food chain. Sooner or later, I got to stop. And the Army's going to say you can't play anymore. What the hell am I going to do? So I thought maybe there's something to this reselling business. So I started researching, and learned about this whole community of resellers on YouTube, on Reddit, on everywhere else in the world. just putting out information or selling their quote unquote mastermind courses and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of people doing the same thing. And some are doing it well. Some are talking about their trials and tribulations doing it, how they do it, what they do. So I just started listening. And get towards the end of the tour, so this is about 2014, I think, I present the idea to my wife. And we're on a Skype call, and she goes, well, two things. One, don't quit your job unless you can replace your income completely. And two, the house doesn't look like an episode of Hoarders, which I'm really trying not to do. So she said, and what do I have to do? I said, nothing, just say yes. So she said, yeah. And a month later, I had a tax ID number. I had two vendors who said, yes, sure, we'll take you on. Even though I didn't have a website, just an idea, a business name, and a tax ID number.
And therein lies the birth of Tactics to Toys.
Yes, yes. And I came home and went to GoDaddy, got the first website, got it built. I started listing on eBay because I needed cash coming in. I took $400 of my earnings, opened a business account, or $400 from my deployment money, opened a business account, and started buying a few things, and just started snowballing from there. That January or February, I went to my first toy fair, which is like the World Series of trade shows, of toy trade shows in the U.S. on the East Coast. You could easily walk 14 miles going up and down the aisles looking at all the manufacturers.
Wow.
So I handed out my cards to some places and, had some people say, yeah, no, you're not what we're looking for. And some people are like, yeah, sure, we'll sell to you. And then I get back and they never fill the order. And I ping them saying, hey, what's going on? And they say, well, we looked up your address and it's a residential address. You're not the kind of business we want carrying our product. I'm like, okay. Now, bear in mind, 10 years later, some of these businesses have circled around to try and pitch to me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that motivates me is spite.
Yeah.
It's very immature, I know,
the East Coast thing, yep.
But it's one of those, I tried that with you and you told me no. So I don't think so.
Yeah, go
thanks,
rocks,
but no thanks. Because I picked up a whole series of other vendors by this time. The reason why I chose toys and games, because that was what I was selling the most of. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what I know more than anything. And if I think back, some of the times I was happiest in my life, was hanging out as a kid playing D&D with my friends, listening to music, going to shows, and working in the laboratory in a clean room because nobody bothered me.
Yeah.
So this whole e-commerce thing works, Mm-hmm. I'm around, collectibles, toys, and games, and I don't have to be face-to-face with customers all day, day in and day out.
Yeah.
That may change one day, but right now, so that, and there's no agenda around toys, typically. Mm-hmm. There's no political agenda. There's, there's some things that go to it where people put their policies and thoughts behind it. But in general, a board game's a board game.
Yeah, I think they're pretty timeless in that regard.
Yes, and I love the nostalgia aspect of it. When certain things come in with some of the action figures that are made after the 80s movies, the original Dune action figures and all that, it just brings me back and just makes me think, wow, this movie was great. Or when the alien characters, they released those from They Live, or the John Nada, who was Roddy Piper's character, and They Live. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel that a little bit more now that I'm getting up there mm-hmm. in age, that things are coming back around with like sequels and redos, and
yes.
Younger generation is really getting into things from my generation, and I see that stuff resurfacing. It definitely brings me back. I had an uncle who he still does. He collects action figures, particularly Star Wars, because those movies were coming out when he was a kid. But I remember whenever I would visit him, his old room was just covered in these action figures. He ended up getting injured during 9/11. He's retired, medically retired now, NYPD officer.
Okay.
And he's dedicated his entire retirement to collecting things from 70s, 80s.
Okay.
And his basement is like, you guys would be great friends.
I'm sure.
His basement is like insane. The amount of collectibles he has in there, life-size action figures, things from the movie sets. It's just insane, and he just does it because it brings back those memories of being a kid. So let's talk about a little bit about the things that you sell on your website.
Okay.
I know I've gone through it. I saw a bunch of D&D stuff, but what are some of the things that you sell?
I sell a lot of pop culture and horror related when it comes to action figures. I love horror movies. Been watching them since I was a little kid, and I don't stop. I still watch them. It doesn't have to be Halloween for me to watch anything horror related.
Yeah.
So when Trick or Treat Studios came out with the 12-inch Halloween 1978 Halloween versions of Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers, I'm like, I need them.
Yeah.
I need them. Send them over. Or the Return of the Living Dead action figures, or the Dune action figures. The movie Willow, they released action figure sets for it. And then there's also music figures that come out. Biz Markie or Salt and Pepper, DMX. There's a lot of hip hop stars. There's some metal, Ronnie James Dio, and that's what I'm attracted to. That's what I get. And sometimes I'll get things that my vendor will make a recommendation on.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is selling really well. Do you want a couple cases for your shop? I'm like, sure.
Yeah, I mean, especially as like sequels come out. Like I bought the complete works of Alfred Hitchcock, and I feel like the universe was talking to me because like right after I bought that, a couple of friends of mine were saying that they're redoing movies, or like there's movies inspired by those works, and then that causes the surge. And
his action figure was a big seller.
Oh yeah.
I had it. Yes.
Yeah, I just I think it was last year when I bought that movie set, and I felt like 2 weeks later it was like all I was hearing about. So okay, so that's pretty cool. So how, when it comes to what people are buying the most, do you find that they're buying like board game peripherals like dice and things like that, or are they buying more action figures? Where do people tend to lean?
Right now my biggest sellers are the action figures.
Right. Okay.
Especially right now, there's one. I feel like I have to up my order because it's not due until May. But it's if you ever saw the movie True Romance.
Yeah.
All right, they released an action figure set.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And it is. I only ordered 3 cases because it's a mixed assortment, so I got an even number of sets. And I'm 3/4 sold through them.
Interesting. What about sports? Is that something that you see?
No. The luchadors from the Mexican wrestling circuit, I had those. They sold well, actually. And I got Andre the Giant. He didn't sell.
Oh, that's really... I had a thing out on eBay let me know when this Ric Flair action figure that I really wanted came out, and it finally did. And I think the bid was at like $10, and I just put $100. I was like, I'm just gonna kill out the bid because I knew, but nobody was gonna outbid me.
Yeah. Now, the sports action figures I sell, or the ones I have, they're the 3/4 inch. Are you talking about the larger?
No, this was a smaller one.
Okay.
The larger one, all of the ones that I've seen, they are animated in some way. They take batteries, they make noise, and I don't really go for those.
Now there's a line, and I can't think of the toy company right now that makes it. It's probably Hasbro because they seem to make a lot, or Mattel. Yeah. They're like 6 or 8 inch tall, and it's the entire wrestling line. Oh, anyone who's anybody in wrestling has been made into a figure.
Yeah.
But I don't typically carry them because I'm a one-person show, so
sure.
I have to be able to. The one thing I don't want to do is get so in and have so many irons in the fire, so many diverse lines that I can't keep up with it.
No, I think your niche is pretty awesome. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the the types of people that are going to be attracted to your website are going to be in a couple of those realms because they're similar interest. Right before this call, you and I were talking about D&D. So what are the sorts of things or tabletop games that you what are the sorts of things you have for those areas?
Okay, let's see. A lot of like H.P. Lovecraft themed games. So the Arkham Horror game series, the Eldritch Horror game series, some of the expansion packs. Sometimes it's hard to keep up because expansion packs.
Yeah.
All these games are in existence already. So there's 10, 15, 20 different expansion packs or expansion card sets. Some of them are living card games, other are tabletop games. Something new that came out, well, not new now, but was the Star Wars Shatterpoint core set, and there was a lot of hype behind it. And I got the thing, and the box weighs like 8 pounds, huge, tall, big. Like, this is going to be a bear to ship.
Yeah.
And then the expansion packs come out after it, and it's just sometimes it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, it reminds me of I don't know if you ever watched Big Bang Theory, but the cast is in this comic book shop, and there's an expansion set, and it's like every time they go into the comic book store, a new expansion set comes out.
Oh, okay.
We just bought the expansion set. It was like the Billy the Kid expansion set for I forget what game it was. But yeah, it was pretty fun. I don't think it's a real card game that they were playing in the TV show, but
okay.
It seems that that's like a familiar theme amongst anybody who
Yes,
plays
yeah, they come out with a lot, and then I got the monthly newsletter stating that hey, we have all these on. Because when you look at the price of something, typically with board games and expansion packs, you are paying 60% of the retail price. That is your wholesale price. It's not even a 50-50 split anymore. So a $100 game cost me $60 or more.
Yeah.
And then you got to factor the cost of shipping it to me because shipping's not cheap. And a lot of my stuff comes from California, going from coast to coast. Oh boy.
Yeah, and it's really small overhead. I'm actually really surprised because a lot of my clients, I tell them to look for margins that are the complete opposite of that. But I mean, I will say though, it's volume at that point. So
yes.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, okay, so how are things now? How do you find? I kind of want to get into the business aspect because a lot of our listeners are veterans that are interested in businesses, and a lot of them don't want to do all the fancy or like popular things like drop shipping. So, what is it like having an e-commerce that sells physical products? What were the challenges you've discovered when you first started? Things like that.
Organization, storage, bookkeeping, and developing a system.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah.
So one of the big things is a lot of my items are generally the same size. So why am I buying different size boxes? Just get one size. So there's, for example, a 10 by 7 by 4 box. I go through about 500 of them a quarter because most things fit in that. Sometimes you put a little packing paper. And I go through about 1,000 feet of bubble wrap a quarter. And knowing that, automate where you can.
Right.
And it's whatever makes your life quicker and easier. Getting a thermal printer, for example, when I no longer buy ink, it's great.
Yeah.
Because ink runs out at the worst times, and if you have to go to Staples to get ink, it's like $40. If I go to the PX on the base, it's $20. But they don't always have it.
Yeah, logistics is definitely big for any physical products. But I'm curious, what was it like? Because getting started, how were you able to find vendors? Was it just simply by going to those trade shows?
Yes.
Interesting.
I was at the Super 7 booth, and in 2017, my wife didn't want to go this time, so I'm flying solo. And they had the King Diamond action figure coming out, and they had the prototype. And I was a big Merciful Fate fan growing up. King Diamond was the man, So I'm talking to him about it, and it's like he asked me something about how do I know his products? I said, well, I buy them through one of your distributors, Entertainment Earth. I said, I carry these. I carry the Universal Monsters. And he goes, so what do you think? I said, I think I love them. You know, they remind me of my childhood. I said, you know, in fact, I only had one issue with anything. The Bela Lugosi style Draculas, the bubble wasn't glued to the card. So I pull the card out and there's nothing on the card. And you look down in the box and there's the bubble and the figure. I'm like, ooh. Yeah. He said, so what did you do? He goes, did you call anybody? I said, no, I got the blue Elmer's glue that dries like perfectly clear, put a just bead around it, dropped it on, and just marked them all as re-glued with an explanation of what happened.
Yeah.
He's like, and you get these from who now? I said, Entertainment Earth. He goes, do you have a card? I gave him my card. He goes, pops open his little computer, does a few things. He goes, all right, you can buy from us directly. He goes, don't go through the distributor. He goes, it'll save you a little bit of money.
Nice. What's it?
And I buy their 3 3/4 inch figures, and I think since the last 10 years, I've sold about 12,000 of them.
Wow.
Taking rough estimates, and that's individual orders. Now, some of the orders have multiples on it. I didn't go dive in that deep.
Yeah.
But they're my moneymaker, and sometimes they also have the bigger margins too. Because it's 50 to 100% margin if you got a figure that's in high demand.
Yeah, and it's better for them too because then there's no distributor in the middle. So
yes.
For them, they're actually maximizing their profits. Even if you're making more, they're making more too. It's a win-win to go direct. And
it's every time I go back to the booth, Luke and I have no matter what my new vendor is or my new rep is over there, I always got to stop and say hi to Luke and.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how many times he's going to get sick of hearing me thank him for thanks for bringing me on as a client.
How many vendors do you think you have now?
10.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. What the question I was going to ask is, what is it like? I don't know much about. I have a business in New York.
Okay.
And I know it's a pain in the ass. New York did not make it easy, especially since I live out of state. What's it like in Jersey? Are there any like hoops to jump through with physical products and being e-commerce?
No.
Okay.
No. It's I register with the state as an LLC as long as I file my taxes quarterly.
Yeah.
Funny story to go with that. Got some bad tax advice from the internet of all places because you know, God forbid the internet, because not everything on the internet is true. I don't know how many people don't realize, but
everybody doesn't know. Yeah.
But because my threshold was so low, I was under the impression that I didn't have to file sales tax but once a year. I didn't have to worry about it quarterly because I didn't hit minimum point. Well, that's not the case. So as soon as you pass the 12th month, the 12th day of the month following the quarter, and you don't file, you start accruing a $100 fine.
Oh.
And then the second quarter you miss is another $100 fine on top of that, and it accrues daily.
Yeah.
So by the time I filed my $8.72 in sales tax for the year, because I didn't have a lot of Jersey customers, I got over $4,000 tax bill.
Yeah.
And I went through the law, and it said ignorant, and it's very clear that ignorance is not an excuse.
Sounds like something.
So I called and had to play. And like, look, I know it says it on your website, but I was completely ignorant of this. I got bad tax advice. They told me to write a letter, send it into the tax department, explain everything, and they'll make an adjudication. They accepted it. They wiped out the money I owed, and they took the $8 and something cents taxes. I was like, lesson learned. So now I file. Matter of fact, I have to do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I was gonna say in the next couple of days. I was trying to explain this to somebody because they were under the impression, like, it's one thing if your LLC doesn't make any money and how you file your federal taxes, but in California it's the same way. Even if you report zero, you still have to report it.
That's correct.
And I had some clients that got tripped up over that because I'm like, the second you apply for a seller's permit, that's when the clock starts ticking, and there's no grandfathering in. There's no. If you bought it on the last day of the quarter, guess what? Tomorrow you have to go in and submit your paperwork. And,
for federal, I do it once a year.
Federal's different. Yeah.
And because if you pay quarterly, as soon as you pay that first payment quarterly, I feel like you're locked into it and then you have to file every quarter. And I enjoy seeing my accountant only once a year.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I do my own sales tax filing. I have an accounting software. I pull up the the P&L, sort by state, and figure out what I owe Jersey. Now, but a goal when you're selling physical products, I don't know how many years ago, but it was Wayfair versus North Dakota. Set precedent now that if you sell to another state, you technically should be paying sales tax in that state, regardless of nexus. And I think I may have said that wrong, but every state has their own mandatory minimums now. So it's $200,000 in sales and or 200 individual sales in a particular state is your threshold. For example, is what your threshold would be to have to file taxes in that state. And TaxJar, one of these other software things, has all those in it, which I hope I never hit the threshold in Florida, because Florida has all these county sales tax as well as a state, and it's messy. I think New York State is kind of messy like that too, where the counties have different sales tax rates.
That's how it is in California too, but in California it's $1. Like, if you do any business in California, you not only have to register as an out-of-state business conducting business in California, you also have to go through their whole tax procedure. So, like when I started my business in New York, I was doing business in California, and California charges you $800 a year, even if you're an out-of-state business. If you're conducting business within the state, you have to pay. They do have nexus, though, so for their own nexus rules, where if you're in California but selling out of state, you don't have to pay sales tax. But if you're in California and sell in California, yes. But I think their threshold, I think you're right. I think it is $200,000 for California also.
Okay. Yeah, because
start paying. Yeah.
And I believe me, I sell a lot to California. I ship a lot to California.
Yeah, we have,
which is funny because my vendors, a lot of my vendors on the West Coast, they also have a storefront as well. They have a retail side, but they're still coming to buy from me.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that whatever works.
Look, I'll take it.
Yeah, I have whatchamacallit. So yeah, we should probably talk, because I have a distribution center here, but I always tell like my friends. I have a friend who's a bookkeeper. I'm like, listen, do yourself a favor, go talk to Ammo. She'll tell you exactly what you need to do, because she operates primarily on the East Coast.
Okay.
She's in New York, but she manages businesses like New York, Jersey, all the way down to Virginia, North Carolina, and I always just send people to her, because I'm like, listen, the internet is sometimes not your friend. Sometimes you have to actually like talk to somebody, and she actually saved me from making a few of those mistakes when I was doing my business in New York, but sitting in California, because there's a lot that I mixed. I mean, New York is so old. Like, I still have to fax stuff to Albany. I'm like, I didn't even know that people are still faxing things.
The medical field still faxes, like hospitals and such. Like,
I mean, yeah.
What's your fax number?
Yeah, I'm like, when they told me that I had to fax stuff to Albany, and I was like, the capital of New York doesn't have an email? Like, I have to fax this stuff, and there's no sensitive information on it. If there was something sensitive, I can understand a more secure means. But
right.
I'm like, it's your form. Anyway, So where do you see your business going? So it sounds like your business is doing really well. You've been in business for a really long time. What's the next step for you?
Well, hopefully, because I'm on my second full service marketing firm, or excuse me, third.
Okay.
And my first two were utter disappointments.
Yeah, we should talk about that, because I think that's good for people to know that not everybody's promising the right dream.
Yeah, and so down the line, now my 5-year plan always seems to move up, because every year that 5-year plan still seems to be 5 years. Yeah. I'd like to be out of here whether it's I build something on my piece of property and put everything in there, or sublet a section of warehouse, because New Jersey's cutting down feel like they're cutting down all the agriculture and state woodland and putting up warehouses.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but
I know, but lease a section of that, put everything in there to get out of the house, and have something else. And then shortly after that, build up to a distributorship. because and still maintain the B2C, but I'd like to do B2B as well.
Yeah.
Because I want to find that guy who was me in 2014 making that phone call, and somebody was nice enough to say, "Yeah, we'll take you on as a client." I want to do that for somebody.
Yeah.
And then my own my own action figures.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
And slush cast soft vinyl designer toys.
Yeah. Well, two things. I was in a similar situation when I started my own supplement brand.
Okay.
Obviously, for consumables, it's I don't know, it's a little bit different, but not too different than actually like collectibles, because you have to keep them at a certain temperature and humidity levels and things like that.
Yeah, especially things like comic books.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't store that stuff in my house, and if I did, there's all these like FDA regulations and like making sure you keep certain temperatures. Anyway,
Yep.
I did a ton of research, and it turns out that one of my really good friends, her partner does pick and pack. So it's a distribution warehouse where they are the fulfiller. You send them all your product, and then they fulfill the orders. But it is expensive because it's like by SKU, the number you have per SKU, and that cost adds up. Plus like shelf space and storage, and you have to do like a certain amount each month. So that's definitely something that I think people need to consider when they're getting into physical products is where are you going to store it, and are there regulations around storing stuff? So I ended up going with them, and they're in Idaho, obviously the more tax-friendly states. But I think right now Texas is really under the spotlight for distribution because they have some of the largest distribution centers in the world, because a lot of the products coming up from like Mexico, for example, will stop at those distribution centers, but they have smaller warehouses for smaller businesses. Like that's where Amazon and Walmart are going to get their stuff, but they have smaller ones that are not as expensive because their bread and butter is the big businesses. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what Jersey does, but yeah, I want to talk about the marketing thing because
go ahead.
You've gone through a couple of different marketing companies, so can you explain what happened? Because I've been in your shoes, so I
all right. So I first, saw it within the veteran community, and I had somebody. I'm not going to put anyone on blast. Actually, wait a minute. This is my fourth company.
Oh wow.
I went through two veteran businesses.
Okay.
And and I don't know how many times I could say this to a marketing rep, or at least a salesperson who's trying to get me in the door to be their customer. If you don't understand the adult collector market, I have to be careful because I always say adult toy market, and that just sounds like weird. The adult collector market, the adult tabletop game market, you're not going to know. This is not, none of this stuff, except for with the exception of one or two items, none of this is geared towards children. It's geared towards adult collectors, adult gamers. And so one started off, so the first two, veteran community, we hired them on. They gave me, we got it, we can do this. Kind of the same story. Sunk money in advertising, and it just, one of them was like, I don't think I could do this. This isn't, he goes, I'm not producing results for you. So that was short-lived. The other one I fired because, once again, it was like pulling teeth to get him on the phone, pulling teeth to get metrics, and I let him go. My son's poking his head in.
I'm laughing.
Hey, Dad.
Hi, bud.
The dishes.
What?
I did the dishes.
Thank
for
you. Go upstairs, please.
Okay.
Small business.
It's all right.
I was laughing because this happened in another episode, and I turned it into a drinking game. Like whenever the kid pops his head in, you have to take a shot.
Okay. Oh, if I'd have known that, I would have put down a good bottle of bourbon.
But anyway, so you fired the second one.
So I fired two, and then I tried to do it on my own, and then I just stopped any marketing whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I did a Zoom call with a small company with remote workers all over the country. I'm not going to say their name too, because they may actually they may do well for some people. They had case studies they presented and all this, and
sure.
And I'm a bit cynical, so I look at all case studies cynically. It's like, okay, that's one.
Yeah.
And or when they say we work with businesses similar to yours, give me some names and business names and points of contact so I can get a reference. Well, that's proprietary. We have NDAs, and like, well, we can't work together.
Yeah.
This one did provide me things, and one of the questions I asked, and this is usually a make or break question. It's, what are you promising? And the answer they gave was very, very well thought out. Mm-hmm. It was, marketing is a very volatile area, so we cannot promise dollars. That would be foolish. But we can promise you, and they outlined what they were going to do for me. Mm-hmm. It's like you can count on this many posts, this many of this many of that. This many requests for what you want to advertise out. They added, so I was like, all right, let's try it out. They had what they called an incubator program. Mm-hmm. So I was sinking $1,200 a month into it. 20% goes to the agency, the rest goes to advertising dollars. And and it typically takes about 90 days to get really spun up, to get the advertising out there. So where you start seeing it. So, naturally, I find a product, I click on it on my website just so I can be retargeted, so I can see it happening live.
Yeah.
But after about month 5 or 6, all the images, all the assets I was sending, I kept seeing the same ones I did back when we first started. I'm like, where's all the new stuff? All the new posts, all the new products I need you to push out. Mm-hmm. And I missed the red flags just because I didn't know any better. Every month or two, I seem to have a new rep on my account. Mm-hmm. And then I could start going on LinkedIn and look up my rep. My rep's a solar salesperson on top of this, or does this on top of this. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So by that time, we were too close to Q4, so I was like, I can't cut right now. You haven't got me any conversions, and that's my metric. Oh, we had a meeting every month, and they'd show me, the metrics and how many people were viewing and all that. And like, my metric of choice I need to know is conversions, and you haven't converted anything yet. Up my sales budget to $2K, or my marketing budget to $2K a month. So $1,500 or X amount to them, $1,500, $500 to them, $1,500 to sales and marketing. And Christmas should get me something. So when I went into the ad roll, which was their service they use, there's still no conversions. By the end of November, I was like, look, I'm done working with you. Of course, I had to pay an extra month exit fee. Yeah. I was like,
yeah.
And by that time, I picked up with a marketing company in Canada.
Okay.
And same money, but a separate advertising budget. So I got to sink more money in advertising. But they full social media management, full website management, and they built a new website.
Oh, wow. I mean, the website is phenomenal. I saw the old website, too, mm-hmm. So the change is night and day for sure. I really like the new website. How's the social media marketing with them?
We haven't sunk any dollars into it yet, because I was with a company. Actually, I really liked working with them, called Arrow.ai. Mm-hmm. They managed my social media. They were good. I had no complaints on them. They were getting me followers, getting likes, getting some business out of it. But I can't have two people doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're growing and evolving too. So, naturally their prices had to go up because their features were getting bigger and more robust. So we parted amicably. I still have to go back and leave them a great review, and shifted everything to one company. No sense in paying for the same service, mm-hmm. but two different entities. So now they post 4 or 5 days a week. They pull from my site. I loaded up all my assets to their images. Anytime I do video, I add the video onto there. They pick it apart and they'll post through Meta They just connect. We just reconnected Pinterest, so we'll start getting them involved in that. And when they take video, they'll edit it back and send it back. And like, hey, this one you can use for TikTok. This, if you're going to post on there, this one you could use on your site if you want to upload it on, and a few other places. Or they just pass it over to my website, my webmasters, and they do it for me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think it's always a struggle for small business owners, and not in your case, but a lot of the people that I talk to, is sometimes they think that they have to do everything themselves, and like, there's somebody out there that can do it better than you, and you can save your time. But yeah,
I still struggle with it because I joke around it, and my point of contact who manages the site, I feel like I drive her nuts sometimes, and I'm always apologetic because there's always something else I need. Like, hey, I needed to do this. Oh, by the way, this is in the wrong spot. It's got to get moved up to here. Do this, that, and the other thing, and
sure, yeah.
connect Pinterest, connect Meta. Google Analytics isn't working. Please have them figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, but it's kind of like risk reward. Like, you had to go through 4 or 5 different companies to find one, and time is money, and having to sink money into these things, and it sucks. And that's why I think word of mouth is really good, because if you have a friend who owns a business, or if you hear a podcast like this and someone recommends a company, it might be worth looking into, rather than going through 5 or 6 different types. It is a little disappointing that the first 2 were veteran-owned businesses, because I think that sometimes veterans are very good salespeople, and sometimes they just need a little bit more time under their belt.
But sales and marketing are 2 very, very different
100%.
categories. So, and you have a lot of people that buy these, will sink money into like a mastermind course and a license for some particular software, and because for a while I used to see on YouTube these advertisements how drop shipping is dead and digital marketing is the way to go, and the guy's got the Lambo in the background, and
yeah, and you think it's good, yeah.
Oh no, not me. I'm cynical. I know it's all bullshit.
Oh, that's why I tell people. I'm like, listen, if you're leasing a Lambo, or if you're renting the Lambo for the day for an advertising shoot, it's not real.
But but it's the same person too. It's the same person, same background. One day he's talking about how drop shipping is the way to go, and I only drop ship from one company because drop ship is so risky, and that's Replogo globes. I like globes. I don't know why. I've always had one as a kid, and I'm just fascinated with them.
I have 3 on my bookshelf.
Okay. And we entered into a partnership, and so I get an order for a globe, I flip it through their portal, the shipping address, boom, it goes.
That's a little different, though. I think I did an experiment on my old YouTube channel where I tested drop shipping on an Etsy store.
Okay.
And it was for, initially it was for mugs. So I'd use AI to make the designs, I'd upload them onto the mugs, and then I tried to sell. And I did really well, but it felt, I guess for me, because of the type of business person that I am, I didn't like it. And there was also the onesie twosies, like when we had all of the ships in the ports during COVID. This is around the same time.
Oh, yeah.
That held up shipping. Someone orders a mug and they're waiting 45 days. There's all these logistical aspects that people fail to think about or pay attention to the market or the global atmosphere when they're in a drop shipping model. But
yes.
No, I mean, it's a true testament, yeah. And
drop shipping is going to take a kick in the teeth because particularly if you're drop shipping from the Pacific Rim, right? Because the de minimis has been, by executive order, has been wiped out. So anything under $800 single shipping coming into the United States does not have to, it gets around the tariffs. No more tariffs on everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting because I think right now everybody's up in arms and they're like, oh no, it's good, no, it's bad. I'm like, just sit tight and wait. It's going to take some time for people to start to feel the effects because a lot of businesses order things in advance based on their consumer trends. I'm like,
but they're all raising their prices anyway.
Yes, and people are just starting to feel it. I'm like, just wait. Exactly like you're saying, when you buy something from some random person on Amazon and it's coming from overseas and you're buying a single planter, and it's going to cost a ton of money, or your order is going to get canceled from Amazon because they're going to need to sell it at the higher price.
Yes.
But
and there's also the shipping discounts that are coming from Asia to the U.S. So for me to send a package to China, use 10 by 7 by 4 9-ounce package, between $28 and $35 depending on where it's going. Same package coming from China to New Jersey is about 37 cents.
Oh wow!
Because of the e-packet and the postal subsidies that go on around the globe, because we're still going on a early 1900s postal policy where people still looked at China as a developing nation, which they are far from it.
Yeah. No, and another thing that you said that I think is really important is when you're looking for things like marketing managers or stuff like that, it's important to find a business that is familiar with your industry and your niche. I have, as a business consultant, people will hit me up all the time looking for help, and I'm like, listen, I can give you basic advice. I don't know anything about your industry. We would be learning together, and if that's the case, I'm no use to you. And you're right, same thing goes for marketing. The current company that you're working with, are they familiar with your industry?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Not really.
Really good job. Damn. Okay, so this is a caveat. This is an exception, but that generally what I said is true.
Yes. We haven't really gotten the ball rolling yet because we haven't started advertising. I needed to get everything in place. We still have a little bit more A/B testing on the website to do, especially for obviously the checkout procedures are working. We're trying to figure out how to make it quicker and more painless and add more options to it, including I think I just enabled where you can make 4 payments.
Oh, right, yeah, like Klarna or like...
those.
Yeah, I did those. I sell high-ticket items, so sometimes that's a little bit easier for people to buy it off as if it's broken up into payments.
I think it's a great... I don't know why. I wish I would have thought of it.
Yeah. No, depending on what you're selling, for me, sometimes I charge $60,000 a year sometimes, and business owners will prefer to, sometimes they prefer to pay that in installments. Okay. And they have the ability to do that through Affirm or PayPal or whatever they're approved for. So, no, absolutely. But, yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. Before we wrap things up, I guess, what is there anything that you want to share with the audience, whether it's about what you do or anything related to business ownership?
Well, I'm doing what I love. I'm having a blast with this. My kid gets involved. I just can't take him to a trade show because he's not 18 yet. Okay. But one of the things I learned is important is be ready to expand your repertoire. Be ready to scale to very different concepts, and always be willing to pivot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure that I leave a link to Tactics to Toys. I'm going to be purchasing some stuff, and I'll post that on my social media. So for anybody out there who collects anything, for the most part, I definitely check out your website. So, well, with that, thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time, and shout out to your son who made this hysterical.